There's so many conferences out there. I didn't want to do the same thing. And I think that one of the challenges is, of course, is that if you're looking for easy answers of how to do church, this is the wrong conference. And if you want to deal with like the big questions of why we do church and what does the future of the church look like, and how do we engage the emerging cultures in the world, and how do we create the future that we can only right now imagine, then this is the right kind of conference. I think a huge part of the uniqueness of Mosaic is when we started Mosaic, we said, we want to be the research and development arm of the kingdom of God. We want to be the R&D department of the church. We want to be the place that takes the big risks, that takes the high risks, that processes into the future. Because somewhere the church has to begin to create, to invent, to risk, to explore. And we want to take that learning and share it with the world. When I see the people coming from like Malaysia and coming from Ecuador and coming from Brazil and coming from Europe and coming from Africa, and they're just coming from all over the world. And I know these are the pioneers. They're the entrepreneurs, they're the innovators, they're the ones who have this incredible ability to think outside of the box. And when you get over 1,000 innovators and pioneers and creatives in a room, beautiful things start to happen. So it's really not just what happens on the platform, it's what happens in the room, what happens on the streets, what happens in the restaurants, that for me is so exciting. I just love meeting the people who come. I'm always inspired by them. There's something so important to God, he gave it to Joel, and so important to God, he gave it to Peter, and so important to God that he gave it to Luke, and so important to God that he passed it on to us, that when the Spirit of God is poured out on his people, that we would become dreamers and visionaries. That young men would have visions, old men would dream dreams. And I think what's happened is the church has become a movement led by managers and administrators. It's almost been led by people who are in charge of risk assessment. Sometimes at best, we're pastors and teachers. And really the movement of Jesus is supposed to be a movement of visionaries and dreamers. And we're trying to rekindle that the church would become the epicenter of human creativity, imagination. What I hope is that TBN audience would use this as an opportunity to invite their friends who would never watch TBN, who wouldn't even consider going on to any kind of Christian or faith kind of network, and say, hey, maybe you should give this a shot. Maybe this would really connect with you. When I first did TBN, just for a few moments, I ended up getting a letter from a PhD at a university saying, I'm an atheist. I happened to be stumbling on the channel. I listened to you, and it was the first time I ever considered the possibility of God. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that people will be watching this. Some of them will stumble on, but I hope a lot more of them will be invited in by their friends and say, I think this might be what you're searching for. And just remember, the promise that we do have is that God always tells us that we have a future and a hope. And so the future of the future is hope. And that for me is really, really exciting.
Faith is not some superstitious framework of reality that causes you to deny what's real and act as if what isn't true is true. Faith, the reason it is so powerful, the reason it is impossible to please God without faith is because faith restores our humanity. See, it is impossible to please God without faith because without faith, we live a subhuman life. See, when we live without faith, we actually start living like every other species on this planet. So that's why when you look back up in Hebrews 1, it says, now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance in what we do not see. When I read that, I go, no, I don't have confidence in what I hope for. I have confidence in what I have. How about you? It's easier to have confidence in what we have than what we hope for. And so what it means is that when we have confidence in what we have, we're actually living a subhuman life. It's when faith shifts us and we begin having confidence in what we hope for that we begin living our lives as humans again. And the beautiful thing about hope is that hope cannot exist in the past because that's called regret. See, hope can only exist in the future. So it tells us that humans are designed for the future, not the past. Now explain to me why across the world the church is a relic of memories of the past rather than the epicenter of humanity's future.